musings, conversation, I guess. Last time I talked about a God who gives a damn and the idea that we're both infinitely small and infinitely important. And I'm not a scriptorian. I've read them a lot, but I don't consider myself learned in that context. But there is a place somewhere in the Old Testament, I think, that asks God a question: what is man, woman, you, me, that thou, God, art mindful of him? In other words, what is man that you care? And then it goes on and says that he's a little lower than the angels and that God visits us. And so that leads me to know that we're not cosmic accidents with a better vocabulary. We're actually divine agents. And we've been placed here with this glorious and sometimes terrifying capacity to choose, to create, to love, to forgive, and to become. And when I talked about this strange truth that we're both infinitely small and infinitely valuable, microscopic in the scope of this gigantic creation, but we're somehow known and loved and invited by God. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that diamond and look at the other size. So if it says that we're a little lower than the angels, that's amazing. And there's another place in some scripture that says, ye are gods, and even the sons of God or daughters of God, of course. I know they can be misunderstood. Those words can be misunderstood, inflated, misused, or turned into arrogance. And that's not what I'm going. I'm not saying we are God, but we are of that substance. We are created by the Creator. And I'm not pretending we're entitled to worship ourselves or anything like that. I'm saying something that, at least to me, is way more beautiful and way more demanding. We're divine agents, not accidental, but trusted by God. And we're not accidents wandering through a meaningless universe. We have consciousness, agency, creative power, and the capacity to become more. It's staggering when you really think about it. Now, for me, it just humbles me and wakes me up because I'm not like an accident with an opinion. I mean, I can behave like that, and sure as heck sometimes I have. But if we were just cosmic accidents, then our choices would be interesting, but not sacred. If we were just biology and appetites and desires and fears and survival instinct, if we were any of that, then love is just chemistry. And forgiveness would be just, I don't know, some kind of strategy. And purpose to our lives might just be a story that our brain tells us to get through the day. It's not my experience. It's not how it feels when we're just really, truly honest. There is something more, and we know it. We know it when we sit quietly. We know it when we hold a brand new baby or when someone forgives us and we feel a prison door open. We know when music just breaks us open and touches someplace deep. We know it when we stand under the stars and feel impossibly small and impossibly seen. We also know it when we're about to lie and something maybe inside says, don't do that. We know it maybe when we're going to be cruel or unkind and something says, that's not who you are. We are not nothing. That moral witness is not nothing. That yearning that you and I have to create, to love, to serve, to repair, and to become more, that's not nothing. It's just pure evidence of what we are. We are not just clever animals trying to optimize comfort. We are beings in a divine plan of agency. We're here to choose what we're going to do with this consciousness. We're here to choose, our daily choices of thoughts and actions forge who we are. in the world and who we present to our Creator when the journey's complete. We're here to choose what we do with that power of consciousness and agency. We're here to choose what we will do with love. That humbling and sometimes terrifying gift of agency, that's not a small gift. It can be terrifying because it means we can choose against our own divinity. I've done that more times than I can count and hurt others with it and everything else. But we can also choose forgiveness. We can choose fear. We can choose love. We can choose resentment. We can choose bitterness, mediocrity, but we can also choose fierce life ownership. And we can choose radical excellence. And we can choose to live as powerfully as we can or beneath what we know is available to us. We can choose to carry shame around with pain and everything else. We can choose to do any of that. So we get to pick what we do with that power. And having chosen lots of the struggle side and living beneath what I know is possible, and carrying shame and anger and negativity, and now having changed completely. I have that document I use, a PTAC, I am love, pouring over your soul like warm sunshine to create a miracle in this moment. So that terrible side of agency is that we can live way beneath our possibility. And on the other hand, God doesn't seem to be interested in making robots. It seems the interest is in helping us learn to love. There's no interest in forcing love or forcing growth or forcing courage or forgiveness or forcing creation. But invitation is the language of the divine. Again and again and again, he invites, spirit invites, pain invites, love invites, opportunity invites, even failure invites, and then we choose. And when I think about the divine interventions or awakenings or 2x4s upside of the head or whatever you want to call it that I've had in life, it always comes back to this. I don't care how big the awakening is. I don't care where it came from. And I don't care how hard it smacks me or you around. That's just the first part. Because after that, I get to choose. We get to choose. What am I going to make that mean? What am I going to do with it? I'm going to the International Association of Near-Death Studies annual conference in Seattle in August. They've asked me to speak, and my topic is from experience to evidence. The experience of whatever spiritually transformative or dying, mine was a death experience, but from moving from the experience to evidence to explore what it means or what it can mean. My goal in talking to the precious souls I'll get to talk to is just to open them up to the possibility that you don't have to die. Every single nudge, every whisper is a nudge, is an opportunity. It's a wake-up call. Do this. Don't do that. This is who I am. That's not who I am. We get to choose over and over again. That's why ownership matters so much. I talk a lot about creation, daily creation, morning creation process, a couple of hours. I'm really intentional and intense about it. Not to be rigid but to invite myself once again into the place of the truth, which is divinity, capability, possibility. You have that, I have it. Ownership isn't punishment. It's not shame. It's just the sober, for me anyway, the sobering recognition that I've been given agency and I'm responsible for how I use it. And sometimes I don't know about you, but sometimes that scares the crap out of me. And I don't control the weather or the economy or the choices of other people. I don't control the past and I don't control the timing of things or the architecture of reality. But I do control what I practice, what I read, what I create, how I speak, how I forgive, when I refuse to forgive, whether I keep my gifts buried or develop them and use them in service. The gift of agency can make us dangerous, but it also can make us magnificent. A little lower than the angels doesn't mean passive. Sometimes people hear spiritual language and they say, well, let go and let God, like that's going to be some, the cavalry's not coming. I'm responsible for my life and so are you. Sometimes we pretend that humility just means waiting. Somebody's going to fix it, God. You know what? Faith isn't doing nothing. Surrender is not abdication. A little lower than the angels doesn't mean being small, obedient in the shallow sense, or afraid to create. It's not my experience. It means that we are entrusted. We're not here just to endure and get through life until the bell rings, ding, and we go home. We're not here to sit waiting for eternity. I'm in the waiting room until stuff happens. We're here to jointly create with the divine. I want you to sit with that for a sec. You and me, we're here to jointly create with a God who knows our name and is waiting and nudging us to use our gifts and talents and to create our lives in the most beautiful way. Though I don't control external circumstances, but we know we have influence, powerful influence. And that's what it means when we say we create our lives. It's by how we use our agency and our consciousness. We create with our words. We create with our choices. We create with our attention. I sometimes say we have a TAL beam, kind of like, in those alien movies where they have a zapper that comes out of their eyeballs or forehead or something. You have a TAL beam. It stands for time, attention, and love. Whatever you shine your TAL beam on grows. Wherever you invest your time, that develops. Wherever you put your full attention, and I use the word love to mean intensity. So we create with our words and our attention and our interpretation. We create with our bodies. We create with our habits. We create with our families. We create businesses and books and communities. We also create wounds and healing, resentment and forgiveness, fear and courage, poverty, prosperity, prisons and open fields. And I'm not saying this is a bunch of motivational fluff. This is the most practical doctrine, as it were, in the world. Life is not happening to you. You participate. So do I. We participate in its creation every day. And when I used to hear that, I used to either get mad or not understand it. And now I live it 100% all the time. I create how I feel. And it took me a long time to learn to understand it. It took me a long time to learn what surrender meant, which is not resignation and looking up and saying, all right, whatever. It's not. The divine who created us also has intention. It isn't he created us, threw us down there and said, well, I'll just see what happens. That's not my experience. My experience, on the other hand, even though I've been in all those other places, is that when I pay attention and I intentionally co-create with my gifts, spirit, talents, and invite, the divine, and then surrender to the truth that because I don't know everything, there are larger voices, larger spirits, larger things at play. And believe, it's a choice to understand that and to believe that those paths go to higher ground. They go to more joy. They go to better fun and more prosperity, like it's the truth that while I have agency to do whatever I want, there is a creator who is able and willing to show us the path if we, quote, surrender, that leads to the greatest happiness, the greatest impact, money, prosperity that we need, right? Now, saying that we create our lives obviously doesn't mean everything's your fault. That would be childish and cruel. Bad things happen. People make bad choices. We got wars going on in the world right now. Sickness, accidents. I saw a message from someone who lost their parent. You know, life is just like that. Stuff happens. But even then, my agency gets to decide. When my mom passed away, which is just a couple years now, that morning I got a note from my sister. I didn't call my mother Mom. We called her Mama. And the note simply said, Mama graduated. Now, I knew she was old and frail and 90 whatever, and I knew it was coming, but that was it. Mama graduated. And I sat, as I read that, intensely grateful and in peace. Because I knew without any question or doubt that she had gone home, that she was with my dad, who died 25 years ago or something, 30 years ago. Well, no, let's see. T99, I think. So 27, 28 years ago. And I knew. Now, I could have interpreted that lots of ways. And then in a few minutes, I could actually feel her spirit. So we choose how we live into things. We don't control things. I have complete agency. If you're interested in learning more about this, Viktor Frankl, the dude that was in a concentration camp in World War II, wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he talked about the agency that was available even in those horrible places. My response, my next creation, my willingness to forgive or serve or willingness to become, willingness to know the truth of where my mom is and to be open to feeling her spirit. And I had some precious experiences. Those of you that know my experience know that the relationship was tumultuous. She, in her whatever, used discipline when I was young that was vicious and cruel and unkind and abusive, wildly abusive. And I love her and forgave her completely. And in those precious times after she passed, I had some experiences that are too sacred to share. So I just invite you to take that ownership. This part right here is what makes me stand in awe. We can actually choose. We can stop in the middle of an old pattern and say, no, not this time. We can notice resentment rising and choose not to feed it. We can take that moment. I have a book by, I forgot who wrote it, called The Wedge. And he talks about the difference between stimulus and response. I have a client who's making an app called Better Human. She calls it the millisecond. The point is, there's a space. There is always a space between stimulus and response. That's what you have. The ability to see the space, to own it, to hear fear talking and choose not to obey, to hear shame talking and choose not to build a house there. Look past a wreckage that might be in your life before. You can look at the battlefield behind you and say, I will repair what I can, forgive everything needed, and become someone who adds good to the world. I have a phrase that I use to remind me of this, and it's this. Fix what you can, change who you are, and add good to the world. Like lots of stuff we can't fix. And that cannot, or can, but we don't need to let that delay our growth, because we can create not just art or books or businesses, although those matter and are important. We can create a field, a state. We can create a conversation. We can create safety. We can build courage in a room. We can create possibility for another person. We can create a life that was not obvious and did not seem like it could come. We can love, not just sentimentally and not just when it's easy. I have learned, and I'm learning, but have learned to look at each person and just love them on sight. Oh, that was hard for me to learn. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be that. I was skeptical and jaded and assumed a bunch of stuff. And now I just absolutely love each person. I see them. You listening right now as a divine and holy being. We can love even when ego wants to win or old wounds want to, jump up, and old assumptions and old resentments. We can love by telling the truth. We can love by setting a boundary. We can love by showing up, by refusing to reduce another person to their worst moment. We can forgive, and that might be one of the most divine things, the capacities that we have. Forgiveness is not pretending. It's not permission. It's not saying evil is good or exposing ourselves to danger. People always go there. It's none of that stuff. It is choosing to stop letting old wounds, old failures, old crimes, and old enemies govern the throne of the soul. To forgive is to participate in divine power. And we can become. This is the most hopeful truth of all. We're not finished. We're not frozen. We're not permanently anything. We're not permanently the worst thing we ever did, or the worst thing done to us, or the worst belief we carried, or the tiniest identity we ever practiced. We're not any of that. We can become again and again. Now, there could be a danger in this, and that's arrogance. Sometimes the second we hear something like, ye are gods, maybe the ego wants to grab the mic. Yeah, and we want specialness. We want recognition. But, service is what we're built to do. We want specialness without service, or power without humility. Like, your humility always has to exceed your ability. Hear that. Your humility must exceed your ability, or you're useless. We want authority without surrender. We want divinity without love. As soon as people get authority, they start trying to cause poise, push people, make people do stuff. That's poison. Our divine nature is not a license to inflate. It's a call to serve. What I've discovered is that we are built to love and serve each other, and that's it. And by doing that, we develop our gifts the best. We make the most money, incidentally. We love the most. We feel the best. I used to worry. I used to think, if I'm busy taking care of other people and just doing that, serving them, even if it's clients or my spouse or whatever, who's going to take care of me? And you know what I discovered? That was a false worry, because I don't worry about it anymore. And I still pour my heart, and somehow I am filled. I am full. So if I'm divine in origin, then I must live more truthfully, not less. If I'm entrusted with agency, then I have to be more careful with my words, not less. If I have creative power, then I have to ask what I'm creating with my thoughts, my judgments, my resentments, my habits, my very presence. If I am loved by God, then I got to quit using my wounds as an excuse to be unkind to others. A powerful response to our divine identity is reverence, stewardship, ownership, and service, which is as far from arrogance as we can get. This is why we need the truth from the last conversation we had yesterday or day before. Compared to the vastness of creation, yeah, we're nothing, but we're infinitely loved. If we remember only our tiny sort of nothingness, then we collapse into shame. If we remember only our divinity, maybe we rise up in ego. But if we hold both, we can live in awe. And I love that word, awe. It gets misused a lot, shock and awe, that kind of thing. Awe is Real awe is clean. It is the gasp of humility and gratitude in the midst of truth. Like, we are not the center of anything. God can do all of his work without me or you. But you know what? He'd rather do it with us and in the process make something out of us. I don't understand everything, and I'm still responsible for my choice. I'm small, but my agency is sacred. So, what do we do with this today? Well, I don't know what you're going to do, but I no longer wait to be rescued in any way from the responsibility of my own agency. I stop completely saying, well, that's just how I am. I never say that, ever, ever, because it's never true. What is might be true is I have a habit of doing this. I've learned this behavior, and then I look at it and say, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that anymore. I stop saying this is just how life works and understand that I co-create my intention, my time, energy, and love beam. That, my time, attention, and love. I stop saying I can't change. I stop pretending that fear is some kind of commandment. And stop pretending that smallness is humility. When I ask better questions, because now what I ask is, what is the state that I'm living in? What am I practicing becoming? Where have I surrendered my agency to an old wound, an old story, an old excuse, or somebody else's opinion? I love surrendering my agency to God because what I've learned is that path makes me the happiest. It lets me build the most. It maximizes my gifts and talents and my ability to serve and love you. So I ask, where am I hiding my divine gift under the costume of practicality? Is there somewhere I'm refusing to forgive because anger gives me some kind of sense of power? Where am I using, I don't know how, as a way to skip starting? I've learned I used to want to see everything. I used to want to know for sure that the end was going to win in some way I defined it. And that's where this surrender comes in. I got no clue where the end is. What I know is that I have learned to trust, and that is surrender. And I have learned to bust my ass in working while I'm going down the road, even though I don't know anything past the next step. One choice, one truth, one apology, one page, one phone call, one landing page written, 10 page. I edited 6 chapters. Hey, I'm excited. I've got a new book coming out, my first fiction book, Yum. I edited 38 pages of it this morning. But that's the act, taking the acts. One refusal to rehearse a fear or a wound. One moment of remembering I am not the victim of my every passing thought. I'm a divine agent and I get to choose. We're not cosmic accidents. We're divine beings and divine agents with consciousness and authority and agency and all that stuff. We have the capacity to love, to forgive, to choose, and to serve. And that certainly doesn't make us superior in any sense of ego. It means that today matters. It means that my words, your words matter, my body matters, my story matters, and your healing matters. Your work matters. Your love matters. The way you forgive matters. The way you refuse to participate in negative things matters. And the way you choose not to forgive matters. Or if you refuse to create, that matters. All of those things forge who we are in the world and what we take with us. You are a little lower than the angels. You are not the author of eternity, but you are an author inside it. You are, we are divine beings that came from a God. And you've been entrusted with consciousness and agency. You're not here forever. This is a blip, but you are here right now. So choose cleanly, behave bravely, love deeply, forgive fiercely, become deliberately. This isn't a motivational slogan. This is an invitation back into the sacred work, the sacred state of being human, the sacred work of becoming. I'll see you tomorrow.